That's right, folks. This is premiering on Friday, as it is the regular season finale. It all comes down to this. We still got a bunch of teams in playoff contention, still got spots to be determined. It all comes down to week 18, man. What is going on, everybody? I am Mac, back with another video, as these are my week 18 picks. 2023-24 NFL season, as I had a very good week 17. I went 13-3, good for a 167-89 record on the season, as it looks like I will avoid 100 losses once again, but I need to do well for week 18. Just a spoiler, I do have a lot of upsets for week 18, but of course I'm only going to have one main one for this week. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow my Instagram. Link is in the box below. As it all comes down to this, we got 2 Saturday games, and then we got a plethora of Sunday games, followed by the regular season finale on Sunday Night Football. Let's get on to it, man. These are my week 18 picks. Starting things off right off the bat is my game. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens going at it in Baltimore. And something else I just forgot to mention. I always really like the idea of the final week of the regular season being all division rivals, as it makes rivalries more enticing. You got teams that end each other's seasons, or teams that clinch playoff spots over another. It just adds more fuel to the rivalry, and this is no exception at all. Steelers and the Ravens, we are 9-7 entering this one. Ravens are 13-3. Obviously, yins all know the story, as we got the job done over the Seahawks in Seattle behind another great game by Mason Rudolph and the run game. Ravens have clinched the number 1 seed in the AFC. They have home field advantage, so they really got nothing else to play for at this point. But I gotta tell you, the Ravens would love nothing more than to end our season as we go to their place. I mean, that's just what rivalries are all about, man. As there's no rivalry of the week this week as well. Well, because they're all division rival matchups. But I do have a game of the week this week. This obviously is not it. But I will say this, the Steelers do have momentum over the past couple weeks, ever since starting Mason Rudolph and giving him the green light to go, as the Steelers have put 64 points on the board combined in the last 2 weeks, as I do have the clinching scenarios for games that have playoff implications listed above. So in 2 starts with Mason Rudolph, the Steelers are already doubling Kenny Pickett's production for what he puts on the field when the Steelers have the offense under him. So, I mean, that should tell you right then and there what the deal is with the Steeler offense led by Mason Rudolph. Obviously, yeah, the Steelers are real banged up as far as defense goes, and the defense has always been Lamar Jackson's kryptonite. For as great as Lamar has been this year, because he did have a phenomenal season this year, he's a heavy favorite for the MVP now, but for as great as Lamar has been, he has always struggled against the Steelers. You know, I don't know if it's the defense that just plays that up to par with him, or if he just really has that one team that he just can't beat, and it just happens to be us. But not that I'm complaining about it. But I think it would be wise for the Ravens to rest their starters in this one, because they don't want to risk Lamar's chances at winning MVP. They don't want to risk any unnecessary injuries. And we know the Ravens are notorious for having meltdowns in late season, but it's something that they don't really have to worry about, considering that they have the number 1 seed and they really just don't have anything to play for at this point, where the Steelers do. But the Ravens might do what Green Bay did a couple years ago, where they play their starters for about a half or so, and if they're up by a significant margin, then they just rest them. but I see no reason for the Ravens to play their starters in this one. So, believe it or not, guys, I am going to take the Steelers to win this game despite being despite us just being very inferior to them. But that's only because the Ravens might be resting their starters. This is under the assumption that they are. So, I got to tell you too, this is probably the most disengaged I've ever been with Steelers Ravens because as far as I see it, this is a meaningless game for both teams because I don't see us making the playoffs. I don't think we're going to go on a deep playoff run, and the Ravens got nothing else to play for at this point. They're just waiting for the playoffs, you know? So, honestly, this may as well just be a meaningless game for both teams. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and actually take the Steelers here just because the Ravens, they can afford to lose this game. Like, literally nothing bad is going to happen to them regardless of the outcome. So there you go there. Saturday night, we got a big matchup here between the Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. Both clubs are 9-7 on the season, as the Texans are coming off a dominant win over the Titans, while the Colts are coming off a win over Vegas. So whoever wins this game, I think, will be in first place in the AFC South until the Jags and the Titans game is determined. So a lot on the line for this one. I have to say, though, for this one, the narrative with the Texans this season is that they can't beat a top 10 defense this year, which, yeah, they haven't. They have not beaten a top 10 defense all year this year. But luckily for them, along with CJ Stroud being back and he's healthy in this game, the Colts do not have a top 10 defense going into this one. Indy is like bottom of the pack as far as the defense goes. They do have good blitzing. They do have good pressure rate, but as a defense as a whole, I don't think it's something that Houston is going to have to worry so much about. But for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor coming back is going to be a big confidence booster for them. For me in this game, it's going to come down to who has the ball last and who do I trust more with the ball last. While the Colts have been a really good story this season with all the injuries that they've had to sustain and all the setbacks they've had, I got to tell you, I'm just a big sucker for the Houston Texans this season, man. And the story that CJ Stroud has put together, he definitely has my vote for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And for that reason, I really can't see Houston getting swept by this Colts team. I mean, the Colts, they had that hot streak they had like in October, November, whenever it was. They kind of simmered down a little bit. Still not taking the Colts lightly, but I just think Houston plays with just a little bit more heart in this one, man. I love the story that they've been on. And the Colts, I mean, they've had trouble lately. I mean, they got blown out by Atlanta and they had trouble putting Vegas away. They're going up against a young, hungry Texans team that's going to give them a fight. I like the Houston Texans in this one, and I definitely trust CJ Stroud with the ball last if it does come to that. So give me Houston to potentially win the AFC South. Next, we got the Sunday slate of games, and first at bat, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers, as the Bucs, they are in a win and in situation, I believe. All the Bucs have to do is win this game, and they clinch the NFC South despite losing a big game last week against the Saints. So the Bucs, I mean, they cannot afford to fall for a trap game right here. Carolina is 2-14 on the season, but the Panthers, they have been known to battle in some of the games that they've been in this season. And the first matchup between these two was only a 3-point game. However, I think it's going to come down to, like I said, if Baker Mayfield is going to be on his A game. Because, like I said last week in my Bucs Saints pick, the Bucs have been rumored to give Baker Mayfield a long-term extension for them. and I definitely think that he's earned it. Baker Mayfield has played very well this season for Tampa Bay, and I think he has a lot of rejuvenated hope for turning his career around, and he has definitely put some energy into this Buccaneer team. I do think Carolina is going to give him a good game because I do think the Panthers are going to be in that spoiler mindset. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and take the Buccaneers to win this one and clinch the NFC South. As if Tampa Bay loses this game, then the winner of Falcons Saints clinches the NFC South. Or if those two tie, which I doubt will happen, Tampa Bay would still clinch the division even with a loss. But regardless, I'm going to go Tampa Bay to clinch the division and pretty much end the Falcons and Saints playoff hopes, even though they do have very slim playoff hopes. But the way I see it, the NFC South, the playoff team in the NFC South has to win the division. That's just what it boils down to for me. But I got Tampa Bay winning this game. Next, we got the Browns at the Bengals in Cincinnati as the Browns punched their tickets to the playoffs last Thursday night with a win over the Jets, as they have locked up the 5th seed and the first wild card in the AFC. So Cleveland, they got nothing to play for at this point. The question I have with the Browns is, are they going to play their starters? So that's going to be a common question throughout this pick'em stream right here. Are the Browns going to play their starters? I have a suspicion that they might rest their starters. But the Bengals, with them being eliminated from playoff contention, it's not like the Browns are going to, look to officially end the Bengals season because their season's done. So I'm under the impression that the Browns will rest the starters in this game. And so if that's the case, I'm actually going to go ahead and take the Bengals here. Even though the Browns have dominated the Bengals over the past 6 years or so, I just think that with Cleveland resting the starters in this game potentially, and the Bengals just wanting to play for pride and just seeing what they have with Jake Browning moving forward as a backup, I think the Bengals I think this game just means more to the Bengals than it does the Browns at this point. So I'm actually going to go Cincinnati to get the job done over Cleveland here. Next, we got the Vikings and the Lions in Detroit. As once again, the question here, do the Lions play their starters? I really think Detroit should play their starters in this one because the Lions, they do have a chance at getting that 2nd seed in the NFC. They can get that with a win, and they need either Philly or Dallas to lose. The 49ers actually have no bearing on the Lions as far as their seeding goes. But Detroit, if they win and Philly or Dallas loses, they get the number 2 seed. And clinching that 2nd seed is, in my opinion, just as important as the 1st seed. Because what if the 1st seed gets eliminated in the playoffs? Then the 2nd seed has the home field advantage. And I think that's what the Lions are going to be playing for. Minnesota, they can still get in the playoffs, but that blowout loss to Green Bay pretty much deflated them, in my opinion. I don't think Minnesota's going to make it, and I think Detroit, they should play their starters in this one, despite the controversial loss that they had against the Cowboys. Sure, that penalty was BS, but at the same time, they failed 2 2-point conversions. You just got to kick the extra point there, Dan Campbell, plain simple. But regardless, I think the Lions wash the bad taste out of their mouth and they get the job done here over Minnesota. I like the Lions in this one because they're going to be fighting for that 2nd seed. So give me Detroit to get the job done and complete the sweep of the Vikings. I talked about this matchup with my Bucs-Panthers pick, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more now as the Falcons go to New Orleans to play the Saints in the season finale. Atlanta is 7-9. New Orleans is 8-8. Falcons are coming off a loss, while the Saints are coming off a win over the Bucs to keep their division title hopes alive. So here's the storyline with this one. If the Bucs lose somehow to Carolina, the winner of this game clinches the division. If these two end in a tie while Tampa loses, then the Bucs still clinch the division. So Tampa Bay, like I said, all the Bucs are winning in. Okay, so the common denominator between these two fierce rival fan bases is that they're gonna both be pulling for Carolina in this game. So that's the storyline with this. Atlanta, they have shown repeatedly, time and time again, that I just cannot trust them and pick them. While the Saints, they got a potential statement win last week over the Bucs down in Tampa Bay that saved their season. And even though Alvin Kamara might not play in this game, I'm going to lean more towards the Saints because I trust them more offensively than I do Atlanta. Plus, if you have to know anything about the Falcons, they've been deplorable on the road all season, and I don't think this is going to be any different. Like I said, I really don't see an NFC South team sweeping another one unless it's Tampa Bay and Carolina or New Orleans and Carolina. But I'm going to go with the Saints, avoid the sweep, and potentially keep their slim division title hopes alive, as I think both these teams also have playoff clinching scenarios. Like I said, that's going to be posted at the top of each slide if there are any. But I'm going to go New Orleans to get the job done over the Falcons here. All right, this is easily my toilet bowl of the week. We got the Jets and the Patriots in Foxborough. Absolutely meaningless game. The Jets are 6-10. New England is 4-12. Just because I got to pick somebody, I'm going to go with the Patriots here because, let's face it, the Patriots just own the Jets. They've won like 22 out of the last 24 against the Jets, including 15 straight games. Even though the Pats are last place in the AFC East and they've clinched that last place spot, some things just never change. Like how they own us as a Steeler fan. I'll sit down here and say they own us for sure. They also own the Jets. And it's pretty fitting that in Bill Belichick's final game as the Patriots head coach, he will haunt the Jets one last time. Ever since he was the Jets head coach for a day and then resigned literally the next day, the Patriots have absolutely just terrorized the Jets. And I see that being the case once again, one last time. I'm going to go New England to get the job done over the Jets here in my toilet bowl of the week. Next, we got the Jaguars going down to Tennessee to play the Titans as Jacksonville is 9-7. They got off the schneid, pitched a shutout against the Carolina Panthers, and Jacksonville, I believe all they have to do is, I think the Jags need a win, and they also need a Houston loss to clinch the AFC South. Like I said, the clinching scenarios are going to be at the top. But this is absolutely a game that Jacksonville can't afford to lose. And I could honestly see them losing it because Trevor Lawrence's health has been a recurring theme all season for Jacksonville. And they have been on a downslide for weeks now, pretty much since that Monday night game that they had against the Bengals earlier in the season. So I really don't know about Jacksonville. I think they got to fight fire with fire in this matchup here, which is get Travis Etienne involved in this one, because Derrick Henry does have a rich history of terrorizing the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Derrick Henry, I mean, he's made very little headlines this season, and I just don't know the status quo of what Tennessee's going to be doing as far as competing is. I mean, the Titans only have one road win on the season, and they have 4 home wins. So I think that alone can be a watch-out sign for Jacksonville. This was really close to being my trap game of the week. I got a better one in mind coming up for it, but yeah, man, Tennessee, they play tough defense. And with Trevor Lawrence's health still being a concern, that's going to be a question mark here. But regardless, I think the Jags are healthy enough to win this game. I do think Trevor Lawrence is going to play because he has shown on the flip side that he is built differently than most quarterbacks in this league. And I do think that Jacksonville defensively is going to be able to maintain Tennessee. So I'm going to go Jacksonville to potentially clinch the AFC South.
It's a
All right,
trap.
the later slate of games, and welcome to my trap game of the week, as we have the Chicago Bears going to Green Bay to play the Packers. As the Bears, despite being 7-9 and nothing else to play for, they have been playing a lot better since acquiring Montez Sweat. And they do have one of the best run defenses in the league. And my main question for Green Bay in this one is, how are they going to utilize Aaron Jones in this one, knowing that the Bears have really stepped things up defensively, especially on the run? When these two met all the way back in week 1, Green Bay dominated them on all facets. Jordan Love had a solid game, and the Packers defense bullied Justin Fields all day. Now it's going to be on the reverse side, where Justin Fields does have momentum, and he's playing his heart out to prove to the Bears organization that he truly can be the guy moving forward for Chicago. There have been a lot of Bears fans that want to move on from Justin Fields, and they want Chicago to take Caleb Williams with the first overall pick. But to me, this is Justin Fields' last chance to show that he is the guy, and that's why this is my trap game of the week. Green Bay's defense has looked very spotty over the past couple of weeks, and they lost some games that they could not afford to lose. However, with all that being against them, the Packers are in win and in mode. Just like last year, all they have to do is win this game, and they punch their ticket to the playoffs. Now, remember what happened last year. The Lions came up to Lambeau on Sunday Night Football, beat the Packers in Lambeau, and ended Green Bay's season. No doubt in my mind the Chicago Bears are going to be wanting to do that, and that's what makes this matchup so underrated this week, just because of that storyline alone. That would definitely put some fuel in this rivalry that's been mostly one-sided by Green Bay for the last 30 or so years. But regardless, I'm going to still roll with the Green Bay Packers here, simply because I like the momentum they have. I like that Jordan Love is playing better football now, and I do think that Aaron Jones is going to be the X factor here for Green Bay, and I do trust Green Bay's defense enough to be able to limit Justin Fields. So I'm going to go Green Bay here, but this is actually my spread of the week. Last I checked, the Packers were favored by 3. I think that's fair enough for them to cover. So I'm going to take Green Bay, and I'm also going to take them to cover to win by a final of 24-21 as the Packers head on to the playoffs. Next, we got the Chiefs at the Chargers in LA, as the Chiefs have wrapped up the AFC West for the 8th consecutive season. But Kansas City, they look like a very shaky team going into the playoffs. I mean, they just have not played well offensively over the course of the last month and a half. While their defense is still playing really strong, the Chiefs, I would be concerned going to the playoffs if I was a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Now, again, the common question, do the Chiefs play their starters in this one? Or do they let them have some playing time and then take them out in, say, the first half or so if they build up a lead? Regardless of what that case is, this is actually going to be my upset of the week. I'm going to go with the Chargers to pull off the upset. Even though Easton Stick is not, a franchise guy, the Chargers have put up some valiant efforts since he was named the starter, since Justin Herbert had to miss the rest of the season. They hung in there really well against the Buffalo Bills, and they hung in there pretty well with Denver. I think this Chargers team is heading in the right direction, and they just need that new head coach, depending on what their interim is doing right now. But regardless, I think the Chargers might have a better future than what people think. So I'm actually going to go LA to pull off the upset for two reasons. Number one, because I suspect Kansas City to rest their starters. And two, even if they did play their starters, the Chiefs have just been really shaky and very inconsistent. And while the Chargers have been putting up fights ever since that 63-21 demolition of the Raiders a few weeks ago, I think they finally get the job done and they finally find a way to win. I'm going to go with the Chargers to upset Kansas City here. Then we got the Broncos at the Raiders in Denver, another meaningless game, as I don't think this one has any playoff implications. The headline here: Sean Payton's an idiot for resting Russell Wilson for whatever reason, or just benching him, and they're starting Jarrett Stidham for this game. The question I have with the Raiders is Josh Jacobs going to be healthy? And if so, I think that White needs to get involved a little bit more, even though these two teams have nothing to play for. So again, it's like I got to pick someone to win. I'm going to go Vegas, actually, because I like the fight that they've been putting up since Antonio Pierce became head coach. And I do think Antonio Pierce has won the right to be the permanent head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, as he has done some really good things with that Raider team, and they have a lot more chemistry than they have in recent weeks. Well, pretty much, for the whole season. I think they're finally free of the ball and chain that McDaniels has held them back with for so long, and I think the Raiders get the job done here over Denver, complete the sweep, and they extend their winning streak against the Broncos. The Raiders have just owned Denver over the years. So I'm going to go Vegas to actually get the job done over the Broncos. Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants going at it in New York, as the Eagles are headed to the playoffs with an 11-5 record as of right now. But kind of like Kansas City, the Eagles have just been ice cold lately. They have dropped 4 out of their last 5, including last Sunday where they blew a double-digit lead at home to the Arizona Cardinals. If I'm an Eagles fan, I would be very worried about this team going into the playoffs, especially on defense. The Eagles' defense has just been putrid, giving up big play after big play, big chunk after big chunk, and even though they did beat the Giants on Christmas Day, the Giants hung in there with them really well throughout most of the game. Philly led 20-3 at halftime, and the Giants battled back with their backup quarterback. Again, I don't know if Tommy DeVito's going to be in this game for the Giants because I don't know about his health. But regardless of who the Giants start at quarterback, I really do think the Giants are going to give the Eagles some problems in this one. Philly has lost my trust defensively, and I think with offense, even then, that's not a complete shoo-in. The Eagles definitely can put points up on the board, and they can definitely be an offensive juggernaut. But lately, offensively, the Eagles have been suspect. They've just been better offensively, but the defense, man, that is really going to hold them back. And I really do think the Giants would love nothing more than to eliminate Philly from winning the NFC East. I really do think the Giants are going to be playing with a lot of heart in this one because they got nothing to lose. They got nothing to play for here, except for lowering Philly as far as their playoff seeding goes. So even though I do have suspicion that the Giants can pull off the upset, it's just that it's like with the Jets and the Patriots. Until the Giants actually do beat the Eagles, I'm going to pick the Eagles to beat them every time. But I do have the Giants making it a really good game, actually. I'm going to go with Philly to get the job done over the Giants, and depending on what happens with the Cowboys and Redskins, because I got to tell you, Eagle fans are going to be pulling hard, really hard for Washington this Sunday. But I'm going to go Philly to get the job done over the Giants. Next, we got the Rams at the 49ers in San Francisco. And to keep it short, I am actually going to go with the Rams on this one for two reasons. Even though I usually take the 49ers to always beat the Rams, I'm going to go LA on this one because the 49ers have the first seed in the NFC locked up. They have a second bye week pretty much. And just like how their actual bye week went, it couldn't have come at a better time for the 49ers because they have starters hurt in this one, including CMC, who has been ruled out for this game, which I think is a smart move by Shanahan because they don't want to risk it any further, knowing that they have the first round bye coming up after this one. And the Rams, they are going to be playing for seeding as well. The Rams clinched a playoff spot last Sunday, so yeah, the Rams, I was totally wrong about them at the beginning of the year. They're going to be in the playoffs after I thought they were going to be a bottom 5 team in the league pretty much. But yeah, the Rams, they had a phenomenal season. They're playing for seedings right now. As if they win this game and if Detroit wins, that I think would set up a matchup between the Rams and Lions, a.k.a. Matthew Stafford going up against his former team in the playoffs. How do you like that for ratings in the playoffs? So I think that's what the Rams are playing for. And I think if you're a Rams fan, you'd have to be pulling for Washington in this matchup. You'd have to be pulling for Washington as well, because I think the last thing that Rams fans would want is for the Rams to go to Dallas to play the Cowboys in the playoffs, because the Cowboys have been unbeatable at home. But yeah, man, I think that's just what the Rams are playing for in this one. So I'm actually going to go LA to snap their long losing streak in the regular season against the 49ers. So give me the Rams to actually pull it off against San Francisco. Next, we got the Seahawks and the Cardinals. This one is in Phoenix, or Glendale rather, but it's in Arizona. Seahawks and the Cardinals. The Seahawks are still alive, but their playoff hopes just got harder now as they took a loss to the Steelers last Sunday, as they come into this one 8-8. So Seattle needs to win, and they also need Green Bay to lose. Similar to last year, where actually it's the exact same scenario, I believe, because last year the Seahawks needed to win and they needed Green Bay to lose to get in the playoffs. Now I think it's the same. The Seahawks need to win, and they also need the Bears to beat Green Bay in order for them to get into the playoffs. So yeah, Seahawks fans, you got to be pulling for Chicago Sunday as well. But, you know, their opponent, they can't overlook the Arizona Cardinals. They have been a chippy bunch since Kyler Murray came back. He has guided Arizona to some improbable wins this season, and even before that, their one win was against the Dallas Cowboys. And then two other wins they've had were against both Pennsylvania teams in Pennsylvania. So that just shows you the fight that this Cardinal team has. And I think they would love nothing more than to play spoiler against the Seattle Seahawks here. However, one thing makes me decide this matchup here. The Cardinals have the worst run defense in the league, and Seattle, they have strived with Kenneth Walker this season. Seattle's offense, I think, has a get-it-right game, as this is a potential shootout waiting to happen here, because I don't trust Seattle's defense at all, seeing that how Arizona can rally from a double-digit deficit to beat the Eagles and Philly. So I'm going to go with Seattle to win this one, and depending on what happens with the Bears and Packers, Seahawks fans will have to wait and see if they're playing January football for the second consecutive season. But I'm going to go Seattle in this one, with Kenneth Walker being the catalyst for Seattle's offense here. So I'm going to go Seattle here. Then we got the Cowboys and the Redskins in Washington, as the last time these two met in Week 18 was last season, where Washington blew the doors off the Cowboys. But the difference between then and now is that the Cowboys had nothing to play for last year, as they had the playoffs locked up and it was just a matter of seeding. But now the Cowboys are going to be playing to clinch the NFC East. They can clinch it with a win or a Philly loss. So Cowboys fans, they got to become Giants fans on Sunday, which, common hatred. I really don't think Cowboy fans have a problem with rooting for the Giants for 1 week, but still, it's division rivalries. So the Cowboys, that's what they got to do. They own the tiebreaker over Philly right now. And if Dallas loses this game while Philly wins, then the Eagles would clinch the NFC East for the second consecutive season and break the cycle. But to keep it short, this is my lock of the week. The Cowboys are just on another planet while Washington just stinks up the joint. And I believe they currently would have the second pick in the draft this coming spring. So I'm going to go Dallas to actually clinch the NFC East in a convincing win over Washington, as the Cowboys are my lock of the week. Here we go, guys. The regular season finale is here on Sunday Night Football down in Miami between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. Game of the week right here, as it's just anticipated to be a great game. At one corner, you got the Buffalo Bills, who have been red hot and have won 5 straight games. They've rebounded really well since that skid that they had mid-season, and the Bills are in good position to clinch the playoffs. And they can even steal away the AFC East from Miami, because remember, back in Week 4, Buffalo blew the doors off of Miami. However, the Bills are also in trouble of missing the playoffs as well. So there's a lot of pressure on for Buffalo going into this game. It can be incredibly joyous as they go down to Miami and get the job done over the Dolphins, and they're celebrating a playoff berth or even a division title. As Buffalo, all they have to do is win this game and they clinch the AFC East. Okay? So it's either going to be a great victory for them and the Bills Mafia up there as they clinch the division for the 4th consecutive season, I believe, or it's going to be another heartbreak for those fans up there, because if Buffalo loses this game and Pittsburgh wins, then the Bills are out of the playoffs. So the Bills have to be rooting for the Ravens on Saturday. Yeah, Bills Mafia, you got to be Ravens fans Saturday night, which disgusts me to say. But yeah, man, that's the Bills scenario. They win this game, they clinch the East. And I believe that would also put them in the driver's seat for the 2nd seed, if I'm not mistaken, in the AFC. Miami is the current holder of the 2nd seed in the AFC, and they currently do have the division lead over the Bills. But the way the Dolphins just got roundhouse kicked by the Ravens, allowing 56 points against them, there is literally no reason for Miami to be resting their starters in this one. As, the Dolphins have a playoff spot wrapped up. Okay, we knew Miami was going to be a playoff team. But they still have to clinch that division over Buffalo, and they still want to be that 2nd seed in the AFC. But here's the deciding factor right here. The common narrative with the Dolphins is that they can't beat good teams. They can't beat, playoff-bound teams. Remember on Christmas Eve, they did get the job done over the Dallas Cowboys, so maybe it's not completely wrong, but the deciding thing for me here is Josh Allen always seems to have Miami's number. He has always played well against the Miami Dolphins. And for that matter, I am going to say the Buffalo Bills go to Miami in the regular season finale, clinch the AFC East, clinch the 2nd seed in the AFC, while the Dolphins have to be satisfied with, I think, the 2nd wild card in the AFC. But yeah, man, any way you look at it, this is going to be a great matchup here. It's my game of the week. And I think the rivalry between these two is really starting to heat up because they did meet in the playoffs last year where Miami could have beaten Buffalo with their backups. But now I think the Bills are just going to have something else over the Dolphins here as they clinch that division title over the Dolphins in their home stadium. I'm going to go with Bills Mafia to get the job done over the Dolphins. That'll do it. Week 18 picks. All my regular season picks are done as I have clinched a playoff spot in the tournament. So I get to live another week after this. Thank you all so much for tuning in all season long for my regular season picks. Can't wait to see how I do in the playoffs, man. And as always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram. Link in the box below. This is Mac. Check it on out for the night. Have a good one, everybody.